Oh, man, so many things are weirding me out here on Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass. Hey, everybody, I'm TJ DeSantis. Appreciate you joining us for this recap of UFC France, UFC Paris. I don't know what the hashtag is, but Ciryl Gane defeats Sergey Spivak in the main event. Why am I weirded out? Well, one, it's the middle of the afternoon, which we don't really do too often when it comes to post-fight analysis here on Extra Rounds. But two, I'm flanked by the man who's really one of the would you be the Oest of OGs? Is that how you would say that? Dean Thomas, you're back on Extra Rounds.
Man, when I think about it, I can't really imagine many other guys who's been around as long as I have and been as relevant for as long as I have. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but you're right. I might be the Oest of OGs in the game.
Yeah, but especially on the show, too. If you don't know, Extra Rounds started in like mid-pandemic. And it was me and Dean Thomas. And, man, you were traveling all over the world. You're a rambling man. And we still made it work in the weirdest of times. And I'm happy that you'll still make it work in the most normal of times as well.
Listen, man, all you got to do is call me and I'll be here. That's it.
Oh, man.
Just say the word, bro.
They should make a song like that. Call me and I'll be there. You know that one?
Well, I think that's kind of like the Jackson 5.
Oh, yeah.
It was close.
I'll be there for you.
I was going to sing it, but I ain't want all the listeners to hang up.
I'm singing the Friends theme now, but man, what are we doing? If we're singing on Extra Rounds, it's a slow day, and it's not a slow day by any means. Ciryl Gane victorious in our main event, technical knockout in round number 2. I mean, what to say about Bon Ghemmouri? Because when I see him, Dean, like if he's not fighting Francis Ngannou or John Jones, he's on point. He's murking people. He's doing the job that you need to do to establish yourself as the number one contender. But that's what I worry about. Like, are we starting to think that the sort of, notes on Ciryl Gane is he's going to shine when the lights aren't the brightest, but when they are, he's going to come up short? Because while I think he did good tonight, don't get me wrong, I don't know if I necessarily believe he has what it takes to beat John Jones or do any better. We didn't see much from him earlier this year, but I don't think anybody outside of France is necessarily going to be claiming that he should be next in line if John Jones gets past Stipe Miocic. If Miocic wins somehow, things might change, but I don't know.
I ain't gonna lie, man. He looked great. He did look good, but did he look like a world beater? Did he look like a guy who could beat Sergey Pavlovich or Tom Aspinall? Not necessarily. And like you said, we have to be careful with what we label these guys. Sometimes we start to put out there that these guys are so great, and then when we put them in the spotlight, they kind of choke and they freeze. And that shows the immaturity of Ciryl Gane, because every big moment he's had, he's froze. And that just means that he needs a little bit more developing, because when he gets an opponent in front of him who's a B level, C level, or even a A- level fighter, he looks like a world beater. But then when you put him up against an A-level fighter, he struggles a bit. So he needs to grow into himself a little bit more. He needs to fight high competition a little bit more. And then we can see what we can do with him. But again, he's hard to trust, because I've had a lot of faith in him in the past, and he's always let me down. So it's kind of hard to trust at times.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of his stats and what he's done thus far. Coming into this afternoon's fight, MMA record was 11-2. That moves now to 12-2. Finishing rate going to go up as well. I always forget how sneaky he is on the floor, because I think about his power and his movement and his kickboxing background. But he's got submissions on his record as well. But tonight, another TKO goes his way. And then, I look at the UFC debut, Dean. We're talking about a guy who, ascended to the top of the heavyweight division, became a former interim UFC champion in the course of, 3 years. 9 fights it was, I think, once he got that interim heavyweight belt. Now, you might want to say that not many people are going to do that in a division outside of heavyweight. That's a little asterisk, but the bottom line is Ciryl Gane gets it done time and time again. He did so tonight, but I mean, how do we feel about the John Jones performance in hindsight, Dean? Because I mean, pardon the French here, pun intended. He just kind of shit the bed. You know what I mean? He really didn't get anything going against John. Like, I don't know. I hate to say it. I kind of blame Ciryl Gane for really not knowing anything about John Jones as a heavyweight. Like, I wanted to see John Jones get cracked by somebody with power in the heavyweight division, so I would know how he would look against a guy like Stipe Miocic, who he's going to meet later this year. Like, I don't know what to think, and I think a lot of it has to do with I don't know really what to draw from Gane's performance against Jones.
Listen, let's make no mistake about this. His performance against John Jones was pitiful. And I felt bad for him because I know he worked so hard, and I know he's better than that. We all know that he's better than that. His coach came on one of my shows, Fernand Lopez came on the show and said, all we do is work grappling. He's going to be prepared for if grappling situations arise in a John Jones fight. The fight happened, and he completely froze. And that wasn't because of a lack of skill or a lack of preparation. It's performance anxiety. And the only way that I can have other people relate to this is maybe think about the time you had to give a speech in class and you got a little nervous and you messed up the first couple of words and you forgot a couple of paragraphs, forgot a couple of sentences. It happens.
Yeah.
You have performance anxiety. It happens. But in a real fight against a guy like John Jones, who is a big game player, John Jones, make no mistake about it, he's a big game player, and he could feed off of your anxiety, and he did on Ciryl Gane and put him away. I mean, think about it, man. Like, you look out in the audience, it was Tom Brady. It was all these big names out there. It was too much for Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane was like, yo, take me back to the gym. Let's just do this in the gym with nobody watching. He would have did a lot better if it was during the pandemic.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not gonna shy away from the fact that it wasn't the first time that Ciryl Gane fought in front of an arena full of people. He fought Francis Ngannou in Anaheim in front of the Honda Center, which I think was a sold-out crowd. But while I don't think he necessarily froze there, he also didn't follow his game plan. And I understand, Dean, what you say. Athletes go out there and sometimes they succumb to some pressure, whether it's mental or they're worried about the physical matchup or your technical skills just for whatever are not on point. Some people will say, well, it's not his first rodeo. You know what I mean? It's not his first UFC walk. But, I hate to sort of bring this back to me. Like, I speak for a living, right? Like, I would do what I'm doing with you right now, and that's how I pay my bills. I just tried to get on the microphone at my wedding, Dean, to say thank you for coming. Couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's case to case. And when you're in there in the octagon in Las Vegas, in a sold-out T-Mobile Arena, like you said, Tom Brady, cage side, and not to mention the greatest mixed martial artist to ever do it, standing in front of you, yeah, you're probably going to be a little nervous.
It's 100% case to case. We all know that, man. Like, you can do something every day, and then just that one day, there's a little bit more pressure.
Right.
There's a girl watching, or there's somebody watching that you're just getting nervous about. So, yeah, it's a weird thing to kind of get people to understand. It made John Jones look like he was the greatest in the world, and I'm not saying he's not the best fighter in the world, but I want to give Ciryl Gane a little bit more credit and say Ciryl Gane fights better than how he fought John Jones. Oh, yeah. What I expect from Ciryl Gane is what we saw tonight against Sergey Spivak, a precision sharpshooter who's able to pull the layers off of his opponent and get the job done.
Yeah, Spivak was tough, too. Like, he had an opportunity to wilt a lot quicker than he did. Ultimately, he succumbs, and Ciryl Gane reigns supreme. I mean, what is next for the Frenchman here, though, Dean? Because, again, if John wins, I mean, who knows what John Jones does if he beats Stipe Miocic? Might be the last time he fights. But if John wants to defend and sort of run a reign over the heavyweight division, like, for me, I would have to see more from Ciryl Gane still before I would want him in there with John Jones.
Well, I mean, but that just speaks of the lack of competition in the heavyweight division. Because if he was a bantamweight, there's a lot of opportunities for him to get some experience and get some fights.
Right.
But as a heavyweight, you beat three guys, and they're like, man, title shot.
Right.
Fight for the title. And he could use a little bit more experience. He can use some big game experience and just get back in front of the crowd and get in a rhythm of fight. And I think a performer like that would do better if he got in front of the crowd a couple times a year and made that walk.
Yeah.
Got in front of the crowd. I think he would. I think he'd be a much better fighter.
Now, they hinted to Tom Aspinall being next for Gane. That's the sort of tricky thing, too, for Ciryl Gane. Like, you can argue he's done enough to get another fight with the champion, whoever it might be, when he would fight next. But you're risking a lot taking on a guy like Tom Aspinall. You know what I mean? And I think you can make up for ground quicker in the heavyweight division. I mean, again, look at Ciryl Gane's rise. But, I mean, you got to fight, right? You got to stay active. Ciryl Gane's not going to do himself any favors if he's going to be, like, putting a flag in the sand saying, I'm going to fight next for a title no matter what.
Well, I'll tell you what. The way he looked tonight doesn't give me any confidence that he could beat Tom Aspinall. And he looked great tonight, but he was fighting a mummy. Like,
Right.
Sergey Spivak was a mummy for him in front of him.
Yeah. I mean,
And
if you
didn't
notice,
really have much. He didn't have much offense. He didn't have no
Right.
feet. Didn't move very well. Tom Aspinall, the way Tom Aspinall looks, like he passes all the eye tests. He looks fantastic when he fights, and you go, man, this guy's special. I think Ciryl Gane needs to stay away from Tom Aspinall. I think Ciryl Gane would do better going, all right, guys, start me back at the top. Let me fight some other guys. Let me get some experience. Let me fight some, work my way back up. Let's not keep me in the top 3 and try to push me for a title shot so soon. That's what I would do. But who knows? Maybe his aspirations aren't really in the fight game. Maybe he wants to see what he can do now and get out.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but my only compliment for Sergey Spivak tonight was his durability, and he still got finished in the second round. And when you're complimenting guys' durability, it's a tough night at the office.
Especially when he get finished in the second round.
Yeah.
I mean, he got hit with a lot. He got hit with a lot of clean stuff. And then you got to credit to Ciryl Gane for being able to recognize all those openings the Spivak was giving him.
Right.
Because he hit him what all the openings were.
Yeah.
Like when his hands were high, he hit him in the stomach. When he couldn't hit him in the stomach with his hands, he'd do it with his knee. He'd do it with his foot. I mean, his shot selection was on point tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it was one-way traffic. It was the equivalent of hitting pads, and he hit all the spots. So good for Ciryl Gane, but we'll see what happens moving forward. Let's take a look at our co-main event tonight. We saw Manon Fiorot take on Thug Rose Namajunas. Rose moving up to 125. And, I mean, it's tough to say what's going on with Rose at this point. Again, coming into tonight, one of the greatest to ever do it. A UFC Hall of Famer in my book. 11-5 was the record. Now 11-6. Good finishing rate. Been in the UFC since the division was created. She debuted against Carla Esparza in a title fight. She didn't win that night. She ultimately went on to win the UFC strawweight championship twice. But yeah, man, like I don't know. Tonight it wasn't the fight that you wanted to see for Thug Rose. She had a injury early in that first round. Her finger was messed up. That can definitely prevent you from being at your best. But I'm curious, Dean. She looked a lot smaller than Fiorot. She was game, but it just I don't know. How much do we take from this in her prospects at 125 pounds? Does this fight speak to really her future in this division?
No, I don't think so. And I don't want to even ride that bandwagon that she was too small or that the weight was the big difference. She just lost to a better fighter tonight. And I think that if she fought Manon 10 times, she wins 5 of them. Regardless of the size difference, because that was a pretty close fight. I think she just needed to make a couple of adjustments that she couldn't do, probably because of her finger, and I'm sure that hindered her performance a little bit. Take nothing away from Manon Fiorot, but think about it. Like, if Manon Fiorot was the bigger fighter, that whole third round she ran from Rose.
Right.
So, like, she didn't really use her size in order to win. Like, she scored points and ran, and kind of had Rose a little off balance. Now, to say Rose is too small for the division, is still, you can't tell, because listen, Manon Fiorot is the number 3 ranked girl in the division, which means only 2 girls are better than her in the division.
Right.
So you can't really say, oh, well, Rose is too small. I mean, was Mayra Buena Silva too small? Was Caitlin Chikagian too small? Because they couldn't beat Manon either. So
right, yeah.
I think Rose, if she felt good at that weight, she doesn't have to cut the weight. I think if she felt good at that weight, she should stay up there and continue to fight, because she's going to have trouble with the top 3 in any division.
I just kind of feel, I mean, I'm doing it right now. I feel bad for Fiorot, because the narrative here is Rose Namajunas for a lot of people, Rose being a fan favorite. This win, people are talking it more about a Rose Namajunas loss than a Fiorot win, and that's not fair to her, especially because, I mean, she's done everything that you could ask of her. I mean, she's been dominant in her run. That's her record coming into tonight's fight, 11-1 now. She's over 50%, 60% finishing rate, been in the UFC now for a couple years. Crazy to think that this is her first fight in her native France. French fighters couldn't fight there for the longest of time. Got legalized, obviously, the second UFC tonight. But does this raise her star power? Are we talking about Farrow as not just a French standout, but someone? I mean, she's highly ranked in the division. Do people start to?
I mean, I'm afraid not.
Oh man, that sucks.
She doesn't have star power. That's the problem. She doesn't have star power, and her fighting ability is not star power quality, right? Like, she doesn't run girls over. She's a powerful, strong female fighter.
Yeah.
But she doesn't really use it to the best of her advantage to be a star. Like, if you want to be a star, you got to do something courageous. You got to put yourself on the line and risk something. And she fights very conservative for as powerful as she is. And I say that because the whole third round against Thug Rose, she essentially ran from her.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be a star, you got to do something that a star would do. You got to step up. If you want to be the star of the movie, you got to be the hero. You got to fight the bad guy at the end. You can't run. And I think that's what's going to kill her. The fact that she doesn't speak English, she doesn't fight with reckless abandonment when she could. Mm-hmm. And I mean, she comes from France, where she will have the respect of the French people, but not a lot of other people are going to really resonate with her because of her style.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think about it. A guy like Georges St-Pierre, he transcended just the French-Canadian market for so many reasons. And you look at his, style towards the end of his career. I mean, he really kind of was I don't want to say lay and pray guy. He was a conservative fighter with his output, right? But that said, George said the right things in interviews. He conducted himself in ways that people were, interested in, gravitated towards him. And I mean, I can't say be like Georges St-Pierre, right? Because not everyone can be like Georges St-Pierre, but you can do it with maybe not the most exciting offensive output.
Well, you can, but you also got to understand too is that Georges St-Pierre, when he was on his come up, he was knocking people out.
That's true.
So, and it wasn't until later at the end of his career, and he took a lot of criticism for that.
Sure.
But he was already a star by that time. He was already
right.
At that time. He was able to combat that criticism with saying, I'm just holding on to my record. I'm protecting my record. I'm getting these wins. Yeah. I'm getting more wins on this title run. And again, he's a sexy man with a sexy accent. Your boys want to hang out with him and be with him. Girls wanted to make out with him. So he had all the intangibles for being a star. And fighters have to understand that. Like, if you want to be a star, you got to find what ingredients and what chemistry you need in order to make you a star. I don't see it in Manon Fiorot. Like, she can be a champion, and I think she'll be an unpopular champion.
I mean, we've seen it time and time again, unfortunately, in mixed martial arts. Being the best fighter in the world doesn't mean that you're going to, A, make the most amount of money, B, have the most amount of fans, and C, just look at yourself in the mirror and say you've accomplished everything you've wanted, even if you're the champion. I mean, you can be one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and if people don't care, they just don't care. And I think that's kind of what makes mixed martial arts special in a way, because you kind of have to, ingratiate yourself with the fans, but at the same time, I get why it sucks for the highest level of athletes.
Well, well, that's the thing, and that's the disconnect. And fighters sometimes don't understand that. You're not the coolest guy in school. Like, if you're in high school, like, it's sitting at the cool kids table. Some of them weren't.
Right.
Some of them are. Some of them weren't. If you weren't, and you might be the smartest kid in class, but you ain't sitting at the cool kids table. And that's what some fighters are. Look at a guy like Corey Sandhagen. The bantamweight division right now is very healthy because Sean O'Malley is the champ.
Right.
When Aljamain was a champ, they hated him. I mean, well, at least they paid attention to him, but they hated him.
Right.
But if you had like a guy like Corey Sandhagen as a champ, the division would go dull. The same way the 125-pound division went dull when Demetrius Johnson was a champ, because no one cared.
Yeah.
They didn't like him, they didn't hate him, they were indifferent. And that's what you don't want with a champion, is to be indifferent.
And that's the thing, man. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, when it comes to being anything in mixed martial arts, whether it's a fighter, whether it's a promoter, even if it's a manager, like, if you want to resonate with the people, you have to make them feel. You don't have to make them love you. I mean, look at Chael Sonnen. A lot of people didn't love Chael for the longest time. I would say look at like, Colby Covington. People just hate Colby. But I mean, at least people have a feeling about him. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what it is with MMA, and that's very forgiving too, because MMA can be a very unforgiving sport, but it's also a very forgiving sport. Like when you take a guy like Derek Lewis or Nate Diaz, I mean, these guys can barely win, but they are beloved. I mean, Derek Lewis has probably done the most with less, right?
Right.
He gets on the mic. His last fight, he got on the mic and did a comedy show without even trying, and everybody was listening to every word he said in the entire arena. They shut up to hear his punchline and all laughed at the same time. And I had never seen that done before at a UFC event.
I mean, think about this. Derek Lewis is getting the mic after a fight, whether he wins or loses. You know what I mean? Like he's getting on the mic.
100%.
Yeah, and that says something.
And he's giving you sound without even trying. He's just spurt out like 3 words, and the whole place just erupts in laughter.
Yeah.
So he's making you feel.
He's a fountain of TikToks when he talks.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He's a human Vine, right?
Exactly. 100%. Is Vine still around? I don't think Vine's around anymore.
Vine's not still around.
Man.
But remember, Vines were only 6 seconds.
I loved it.
That's Derek Lewis. He gives you a 6-second soundbite.
Yeah.
And then it's viral.
Right. My balls are hot. That's all you need. That's all you need.
I use that as a punchline in one of my comedy routines.
Yeah, because he's as good of a comedian as he is a fighter. He
is.
And this is also a sport of what have you done for me lately? And Derek Lewis landing a flying knee in his last fight.
God.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like he's better than Fedor in some people's minds.
Right back on top.
Exactly, 100%. So let's take a look at some of the other action that went down tonight. The second time the Octagon has touched down in the country of France, and man, the French supporters were out in numbers. I mean, it was a sing-along event in many ways. But Benoit Saint-Denis victorious over Thiago Moises. We also got some other action. Volkan Oezdemir, not French, but back in a very big way, giving the French fans something to cheer about. He gets a rear naked choke stoppage. Oezdemir is a guy that I think is fallen off the radar, maybe a bit unfairly. He came out so hot. And granted, he didn't live up to a lot of the hype and the potential, but I don't think he's done yet, Dean.
I mean, he's in a division where he could make, because he's got knockout power.
Right.
And right now I'm on this kick of finishing and saying, all right, he's got 100-point moves, right? Mm-hmm. Like at a football game, like if you could score an 100-point touchdown,
right? Like
that's the end of the game. But that's how MMA is. And Oezdemir has the ability to score 100-point games, have 100-point games
like
just in one punch.
I like that because you are right. A victory in mixed martial arts, like the result of it, like in how you propel yourself forward, they're not 1-to-1, man. Like you go out there,
it's not linked at all.
No,
and Oezdemir is a classic case of that. He's a guy who was probably not that great in the beginning, but he knocked a couple guys out early,
right?
And then he had to kind of fill these shoes along the way, and I think he was still learning along the way as he was trying to fill them shoes of this knockout artist, but he wasn't really that guy.
Yeah.
And now I think we're starting to see more about what he really is. And he's starting to kind of come into his own. I think he's getting better along the way, but when he came out and starts those dudes early, I mean, it just made him look like he was going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but there's that old saying, like, winning solves everything. I mean, yeah, it does in a lot of ways, but it's how you win. If you go out there and just, even if it's one-way traffic, if you're 10-8ing people, but you're doing it because of duration and not damage and just, insane dominance, no one might even come close to taking a round off of you, but also no one's coming to take your photo afterwards. So.
Yeah, no kidding. No one is coming to take your photo afterwards.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's what I got to say about Benoit Saint-Denis. I mean, he looked fantastic in a very fantastic fight tonight against Thiago Moises. And after that first round, I was so excited. I was like, this is definitely got to be fight of the night. But Benoit Saint-Denis looked like a man versus a boy against Thiago Moises. And I know how good Thiago Moises is. So to do what he did to Thiago Moises, we better watch out for this guy. He is on the rise for sure.
No, 100%. And that's the performance you want to have when you got a fan-friendly crowd in front of you. And he definitely got it done tonight in a very big way. Bit of some crazy stuff going on tonight. One of our fights, we got a technical knockout due to referee stoppage from body kicks. William Gomis defeats Giannis Ghemmouri. I think that's how you say it. We got to talk about this, team, because there was a low blow that I went back and I watched the replay several times. I didn't even watch the replay. I watched it happen live several times. And the referee, said to Ghemmouri, fight, continue. The kick he felt was legal. Ghemmouri definitely had, some issues with it. It was one of those kicks, like I'll describe the strike. It happened like a little bit below the belt line on the highest of, I don't even want to call it the thigh because it's not really the thigh. But the foot drug across and it caught the cup, I think, as it was sliding by. And Ghemmouri, I'm not going to say that he wasn't bothered by it, but I mean, it's not the worst shot you could have taken when it comes to low blows. But he, indicated to the referee that it was troublesome. The referee said, fight, fight, fight. He did not. They call it off. And, I don't know what the rules are in France. We don't have unified rules. Like the rules are quote unquote unified. They're not. There seemed to be some looking at the replay. I don't know if they actually have replay on the books there. I also don't know if they do have replay, if it's one of those things where if you go to replay, the fight can be started again. A lot of places that use replay, they basically only do it to confirm a decision rather than go, oh, that was the wrong decision, so let's go back and fight. Tell me what your thoughts were on this, because I kind of felt like at the end of the day, we got what we should have got, because Ghemmouri was telling the referee he couldn't continue. The ref in the moment said, no, fight, fight, fight. It's a clean shot. Ultimately, he stops the fight. Did the right thing happen here?
I didn't think the right thing happened. I thought that sometimes you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think in terms of a low blow, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, here's what happens: is that when we go to these new countries and we're dealing with referees that don't have this big game experience, the same way that fighters get caught deer in headlights, that happens to referees as well, and they make a lot of bad decisions. And fighters have to take the punishment for that. Like, fighters are the ones who suffer because of the decisions. It happened in Abu Dhabi a bunch of times, and when they, during COVID, you get these referees who don't have this big game experience, and they go out there and they make so many mistakes.
But what? Hang on, let me stop you for a second, Dean. What did the referee do that was a mistake here? Because I don't think the referee did a mistake.
He shouldn't have stopped. He shouldn't have stopped that fight.
He didn't. He said, he said fight, fight, fight. And Ghemmouri disengaged, and at that point, in my opinion,
because to me the blow looked low to me.
Right, I hear you. See, this is what I think the crux of the issue is. Fighters know that if they appear to get hit low, they can get a moment, right? And I think he was looking for a moment, and ultimately, the referee said fight, fight, fight. He didn't. At what point? I mean, the referee could have disengaged and just, said to Gomis.
But you see, that's not fair to the fight. But that's not fair to the fighter to go to in a situation where he may be hurt. He may have been hurt from an illegal blow.
Yeah.
For the go-to move would be fight. That should be the go-to move.
But the referee believes it was a clean shot. Now, there are no timeouts in MMA. I know. I can't get.
But I think in terms of like fouls, like eye pokes, growing shots, I think you got to give the fighter the benefit of the doubt. I think you got to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think you got to say innocent until proven guilty. I think you got to look at that and go, all right, we're gonna stop it right now. We're gonna look at the film, but if the film shows that you didn't get hit low and we deem you didn't get hit low, then it's over.
Yeah,
and you're disqualified. You're disqualified.
I don't hate that. I feel like if you're going to give the benefit of the doubt, if the worst case scenario for you is if you're, fibbing, we'll call it, that you lose via DQ, I don't think anybody is going to be fibbing. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're 100% right there.
I think they should give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing too: is it we oftentimes don't know what type of cup a person is wearing. We don't know what their groin protector is like.
Well, I feel like we need to make it standard at this point. Why isn't there one cup that's standard?
But even if it is, the human anatomy of everybody's a little different. So the cup might be placed in a certain way where you kick the cup a certain way where the cup actually hits your junk.
Right.
And that's where the damage comes from. So we don't know how much damage is done from those kicks.
Right.
It doesn't have to hit squarely in the ding-a-ling. It could hit somewhere on the cup, and the cup affects the groin area.
Sure.
So I think we got to give them the benefit of the doubt, and then we say, no, we deem that as unfair. We deem that you were lying. You're disqualified. And then you're going to look like a complete scrub from that moment on.
See Josh Koscheck and Paul Daly, if you don't know what we're talking about.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
But I like that. I do think, though, that we have an issue where guys will, fib a little bit to get a couple minutes. But if we're talking about a fight-ending sequence and you find out that, hey, the referee's telling me to fight right now, and if I don't, re-engage and defend myself, they're going to go look at the replay and they're going to realize that this wasn't that bad. Or because you are right. Like, I don't think that he was faking. I think that he was in some discomfort for sure. But from a format standpoint, from like how the referee is supposed to handle the situation, I think he did a good job. I think he's a bit hamstrung by the rules because I think Ghemmouri could have gone back and continued. And unfortunately, like you said, the UFC and MMA is very new in France. I don't know if there was an option according to the rules to restart because I think Ghemmouri was 100% ready to go when they finally decided that the fight was over.
Well, here's the thing is I don't think that the referee is in a position to be like, no, you didn't get hit there, fight. And then put a compromised fighter in a position to get beat up even worse because the referee made a bad judge. Like, I think you need to stop that right then and there and take a look at the replay because we have the replay for a reason now.
So okay, let's just scenario here for you, hypothetical situation. Fighter eats a shot to the solar plexus, loses his wind, tries to complain to the referee that it's a low blow. The referee knows it's not a low blow. In that moment, are we going to say, if you're the fighter that's complaining, you basically realize that if you're going to try to get the referee to stop it, to look at it on replay, like you're throwing that challenge flag, if you lose that challenge, this fight is over?
Absolutely.
I like it. I like it a lot. I really do.
Absolutely. I think that should be the way it's played because the way we do it now, if the referee goes, no, you didn't get hit low, I thought that was clean, keep fighting. What if he did get hit low? Now you just asked a compromised fighter. You just put an innocent fighter in a worse situation.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not fair. It's completely not fair.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Now, just another hypothetical situation, and this is where I think there's an issue. I've seen this happen before in MMA. Guy shoots in for a takedown, right? Or he's getting up, and he gets kicked in the head, and basically gets hurt pretty bad. Referee stops the fight, doesn't let the guy continue because he feels the shot was illegal. They look at the replay, not illegal. You can't restart the fight.
No, you can't restart the fight.
But does that guy deserve a loss? I mean, he might have been able to battle back. He just wasn't given the opportunity. Referee steps in because he thinks it's an illegal knee or kick. You know what I mean? I don't know what to do there.
Yeah, I mean,
because you don't want to take away a win from a fighter that definitely probably could have put in the finishing touches. But does the guy deserve a loss because the referee thought it was an illegal strike?
Well, here's the thing, and I say this all the time. The way we treat fighters is very elementary and it's very barbaric, right? We think fighting is we just look at fighters as being barbarians, and we treat them that way, which is why it's like, why couldn't you just call that a no contest? Because we don't want to do a no contest because we got to have a winner and a loser because they're fighters. Shut up and just fight.
Right.
And I think that's the way we treat fighters because situations like that should just be deemed a no contest. That's a no contest.
Yeah.
Because it's, and this is why, like, I'm not opposed to 10-10 rounds. Okay. I'm not opposed to even, but they don't want that because they just think fighters don't matter. They're like, somebody's got to win.
Right.
You think fighters don't matter?
There's no reason that let's be honest. We didn't walk out of this matchup better off for having a winner, right? Like, this doesn't affect the landscape of anything. I don't think that either fighter is better off or worse off for what happened, I mean, I think you got to make the rematch like immediately.
You got to make a rematch. And I don't know if it has anything to do with maybe betting or the way the pay structure is, which I think is terrible anyway in terms of, win bonus. I think all that is archaic. We need to get rid of all that.
I hate it.
And I think that might have something to do with the reason why we need a winner.
Right. Sure.
I don't know.
Sure. But I mean, also too, maybe if it's a no contest in a situation like that, maybe Dana goes, you know what, both of you guys are getting half your win bonus or something like that, because neither guy really deserved to be on either side of that fight, really, at the end of the day. And that's, I think, the problem. But I don't know. We're trying to get better, trying to make it work.
Well, that's the thing. And this is what I wanted to tell you is that, I sit on the fighters committee with the ABC, the boxing commission, the ABC commission, and they are doing a lot more now to help fighters.
Right.
I mean, it's everything takes a long time, but they're reviewing fights now in terms of to change laws and to make things a little bit more fair. And they presented us with a case just recently of some in California of an illegal knee or something like that. So they're really trying to do better as opposed to just saying, screw it, just they're stupid fighters.
Right.
And to me, I think that's kind of always been the default setting, was to just go, screw it, they're stupid fighters. Give them $30 and tell them to shut up.
$30, man. I'm a more expensive date than that.
I say $30 because that was how much I got paid for my first professional fight.
That's sad. I mean,
here's $30, kid.
But $30 back in 1932 was a lot of money.
It's true.
Yeah.
It values in at $3 million right today.
Exactly right. Let's talk about our first fight of the night. Morgan Charriere shined. You want to talk about effective body strikes? There's no question about this. He got Manolo Zagini out of there with a good shot to the liver. Looking at Charriere, he's a guy that might be new to the casual UFC fans, even to hardcore UFC fans. If you're only watching the UFC. You're not going to know about some of these standouts from Cage Warriors and whatnot. Charriere, former Cage Warriors champion, a guy that was on the cusp of the UFC for a long time, and then kind of ran into a little bit of a skid in terms of getting the win and performing the way that he had in the past. But man, the debut comes tonight, Dean Thomas, and it was worth the wait for Morgan Charriere.
Yeah, man, he looked good against a tough guy too, man. The guy I thought was going to give him some problems, but he looked good against a tough guy. But the sequence of which he was able to land them body kicks was just phenomenal. I mean, that's just pinpoint accuracy, just toes in the solar plexus, toes in the liver. I mean, to do that, it requires a tremendous amount of precision and just really good striking. And I like it, man. I think the featherweight division will be better because of him. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again. And you never know, man. He's got the little colorful hair and all that stuff. So he might have some star power qualities about him. Maybe they can resonate with more fans. I mean, after he won, he ran around and the crowd, obviously the French reacted and responded well to him, but we'll see how he does against an American crowd.
Yeah. I think he'll do well. One thing too, I think the hardcore MMA fans already loved him. It's a little bit different with Paddy Pimblett because he carries over to the American fan a little bit easier, but he's very similar to Paddy, who was also a Cage Warriors export. Paddy, had some ups and downs as well inside Cage Warriors, and as did Charriere. And I think that when you can get to the UFC, and I worry about this a lot of the times when some of these fighters do really well and get to the UFC and quickly, you don't want to face adversity for the first time inside the UFC's octagon. You want to have some adversity on the come up. And
yeah.
And I think no one ever wants to lose, but I think it's great for fighters to deal with that first defeat before going into the UFC and suffering it for the first time, because the mental, attitude and mindset of an athlete coming off, the first loss of their career, if they had 18 wins in front of it, they start to question things, especially if they get knocked out or, just feel like they lose a bit of confidence. If you can, take a step back or get checked a little bit prior to getting to the UFC, man, I think you're much better off for it.
Oh, I was talking, I think that was Anthony Smith, maybe I was working a desk with, and we were talking about Karine Silva and Natalia Silva down in Brazil. They just had big wins a few weeks ago. And if you look back at their record, they have tremendous records. Karine Silva is, I think, 16-5 now, and Natalia Silva is like 12-3. But if you look back at their records, their losses, they fought very high level competition early in their careers.
Yeah.
Like I think Natalia Silva fought Marina Rodriguez early, and so like they had these high level competition. So by the time they got to the UFC, they was already used to it.
Right.
Now they on a run.
Yeah.
They used to facing top level people.
Yep.
So I always tell fighters, listen, don't try to pad your record, because you're gonna get exposed. You will get exposed by padding your record. You better face some tough people now and know what it feels like. Know what that feels like when you miss. Know what it feels like when you get hit by a good person. Because if that happens the first time in the UFC, you're gonna freak out.
I got a name. I don't know if I should be an a-hole and say the name, but give the example. Should I or no?
Please do.
All right. He's a nice guy, but man, the example that I would say when it comes to athletes that maybe had a quick, easier ride to the UFC and then met adversity quick and hard and painful was a guy named Jason Reinhart. I mean, he was a king in the Midwest. He was destroying dudes. And then he ran into a guy named Joe Lozon, and that wasn't good. It was not good.
Listen, Jason Reinhart was like, I remember him being like 30-0.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
he was like 30-0, and he got to the UFC and just got obliterated.
Right. And I remember people talking about, like, dude, look at this Reinhart kid. Like, is he going to beat up Joe Lozon? Like, he's got a great record. And it's like, I mean, yeah. He went to Barnes and stuff in the Midwest and got a couple wins, probably multiple on a single night, because that's what the Midwest was back then. Yeah,
that's not a good idea, especially nowadays. You know, the landscape of combat sports is changing. Even in boxing, I don't think I think it's just all about mass appeal now as opposed to wins and losses.
Yeah.
In boxing, a little bit still more wins and losses, but in MMA, it's like you can lose 6 in a row, but if you got mass appeal, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So go out there and get them tough fights.
I mean,
fight them different styles. See what it feels like.
There are dudes that could lose 7 or 8 times in a row in the UFC, and I'm not worried about their job security in any way, shape, or form. If they go out there and perform and don't, 7 or 8 maybe is a little bit egregious, but for the most part, like there are dudes that people are never going to be upset seeing them fight, and it doesn't matter how many wins are in that win column.
Well, I mean, like Sam Alvey lost like 8 in a row until they finally got rid of him.
Right.
And he wasn't even the most popular guy.
And he still went out the door with a smile on his face.
But he still had love, and they still gave him an opportunity. Like Chris Weidman, for example.
Right.
And I'm not trying to write this man's future.
Right.
But they're never going to cut him. They're hoping that he eventually retires on his own, because they're not going to cut him, because we love Chris Weidman and we want to see him do his thing and go out on his own terms. But if Chris is listening, you know what I'm saying? I'm coming for your show on Sirius XM, Chris.
Uh-oh. Well, I'm going to get you on your way. If you want to go ahead and get after Chris Weidman, like, I'm not going to stand in your way. It's still early. The sun is up outside. I don't know what it's like out there on the... Wait, I don't even know where you are, to be honest with you.
I'm in Philadelphia right now.
Why?
I was out there. Yeah, I was out there with Joe Pfeiffer and them at the training at Marquez MMA earlier this morning. So I just come out here and do my thing.
What is wrong with you, Dean? Like, you're not working this week and you're still not home? Like, why aren't you at home?
Still not home, man. I'm still on the road, man. Collecting data so that I can come on these shows and have some interesting information to talk about.
Let's be honest with you. No one at home wants you to come home. Your friends don't want to hang out.
I got no one welcome me with open arms anyway, so it's all good.
Your kid's like, Dad, what are you doing here? Like, go work or something.
And my son just went away to college. Shout out University of South Florida. My son just went to college.
Dang.
Stand in the dorm. So like, yeah, I'm a lonely old man now.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get to being alone.
Yeah. TJ, it's been real. Listen, anytime you want me to come on the show and chop it up with you, you my man. Just give me a holler.
You're one of my favorites, if not my favorite. Don't tell Ray Longo.
Oh, yeah. Don't have to say that.
All right. We'll see you later, Dean.
Peace.
There he is. Dean Thomas, kind enough to join me here on Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass. Man, it's crazy how many shows we've done, and Dean was like a staple for almost all of them at the front end. And then, I don't know. I mean, I guess he's coming for Chris Weidman's show on Sirius XM. I think Ray Longo came for his spot on Extra Rounds, to be honest with you. But, yeah. All right. What do we got going on here? Let's see here. Oh, dang. We're less than a minute away from more live action here on UFC Fight Pass. You watch the UFC. You up for more MMA? We got it for you. Got CFFC and LFA coming your way. CFFC starts, like I said, in less than a minute. So just head over to Fight Pass right now. Step into our world. Turn it on. CFFC, one of the best regional promotions out there, creating tons of stars that go on to the UFC and do big things. And then you got the LFA starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 p.m. here on the West Coast. So go turn that on and get to it. More MMA action continues live on UFC Fight Pass. If you miss any part of this broadcast, you're just tuning it on, go back and watch on the UFC Fight Pass Facebook page, YouTube, always behind the paywall as well. We got a ton of content for you on UFC Fight Pass. It's the biggest no-brainer in combat sports. Sign up today, UFCFightPass.com, and honestly, just step into our world. That's what we're doing over here on UFC Fight Pass. Want to thank everyone for tuning in. Dean Thomas for doing his thing on an off night still, helping me out. Producer on site. Well, not on site, but at home or in the office. I don't know, wherever he is. Frankie Redzepi doing big things, making sure that this show continues to do what it's supposed to do. So I want to thank him. And again, sincerely, thank you for tuning in. For Dean Thomas, I'm TJ DeSantis. This has been Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass. We will chat soon.
Boom.